Okay, today we're going to do something a little bit different with SketchUp. We're going to learn how to make terrain. Terrain is a fancy way of saying land, or land formations. First things first. Your screen might look a little bit different than mine. It might not have these buttons on it yet. If it does not, no problem. Go up to Window, go down to Preferences, go to where it says Extensions, and make sure the Sandbox Tools button is checked. If you still don't see them, go up to View, Toolbars, and make sure that Sandbox down here is checked. After that, you should definitely see these buttons. Okay. Now, we're going to want to zoom out. Okay. The first button we need is this one right here. It's called From Scratch. We're going to be making this terrain from scratch. Click on that. And now, it's kind of like making a rectangle. I'm going to click one time, and you see it's already moving. What I'd like for it to happen is for it to turn green, like this. Once it turns green, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and that locks it on the green axis. Okay? And now I'm actually going to tell it that I want it to go 200 feet. So I'm going to click 2, 0, 0, and one of those single apostrophes. I'm going to press Enter. Now, I'm going to move this way, and I'm going to tell it to go 200 feet. Enter. There is the basic landmass we're going to make. Okay, the next step might be one of the most important. If you leave this out, you'll be very frustrated very quickly. Take your Select tool and select the entire piece of land. Right-click on it and go to Explode. Now, click somewhere else to get it unselected. Now the fun begins. The basic tool we're going to use is this one right here. It's called Smooth. What it lets me do is take a part of the land, and if I click, I can move it up, or I can move it down. So if I want a hill, no problem. I can also change how big this circle is. In the bottom right hand corner you see where it says radius 23 feet. Well, maybe I want it to be 10 feet. I press Enter, and my circle gets smaller, and I can change a smaller piece of land. You might notice that it's a little hard to get the land exactly how you want it. No problem. With my Smooth tool, if I click one time, the offset comes up at the bottom right hand corner, and I can tell it how much I want it to be offset. I'm going to say 50 feet. Enter. And it automatically does it. Right next to it, I'm going to tell it that I want it to be negative 50 feet. Enter. And you can see that it went down. If I make the radius of my Smooth a little bit bigger, I can really begin to have some fun, really shape this landscape a bit. Maybe I want this to be a big mountain range. And then I've gone ahead and started over because I wouldn't really like the way it was going. I'm going to take my Smooth tool one more time and begin to work on making some mountains around the edge. And maybe I want a really high mountain over here. So I'm going to tell it 60 feet. And next to it, another high mountain, maybe even 70 feet. Coming down here, I'm going to start to move, or smooth, the land down. Oops. Undo, Control Z. Negative 20 feet. negative 25 feet. And you'll see my main point for bringing that down is that that will become my river. Because of course rivers should be sunken down lower than the ground around them. So I'll take my paint bucket and I'm going to begin to paint the water. And here I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch me do the whole thing. Okay, so I've gone ahead and painted the entire thing. And I've tried to make sure that you can tell what everything is. So I've got my river coming off of the mountain, so hopefully that's going to look like a waterfall. I have grass, I have mountains, and I even have these red cliffs over here. So far it doesn't still look like land yet, but that's for the last step. Let me also point out that when I did my grass and my rock, I didn't use the same colors every single time, because real grass wouldn't be the same color all over. I threw in patches of this kind of grass and that kind of grass. I had this kind of stone and that kind of stone. This kind of stone, this kind of water. That makes it look a little bit more realistic to me. So, last step. Once again, I'm going to highlight all of my land. And I go up to Window, and I find the Soften Edges. I tell it, soften the coplanar, and I can take this little slider and I can slide it over. And what it does is it gets rid of the lines. And it looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more rolling. Now keep in mind, once those lines are gone, painting is going to be almost impossible. So make that your very last step. And hopefully by the time you've done, you'll have a nice piece of imaginary land.